A founding member of the United Federation of Planets, the Tellarite people hailed from the Alpha Quadrant planet Tellar Prime. As one of many humanoid species in the galaxy, it is possible their history stretched back 4.5 billion years to a powerful progenitor species that seeded life on many worlds, some of which eventually evolved into humans, Romulans, Klingons, Cardassians, and others. Shorter than the average human of Earth, Tellarites had purple blood along with snout-like noses, hoof-like hands, and wrinkled faces. A stout people, quick to anger, males often had thick beards and could be known as fearsome fighters. Preferring warmer climates and mud baths, they ate a diet consisting largely of fruits and vegetables, with canine considered a delicacy. Known to be stubborn, impatient, insulting, prideful, and passionate, they considered argument a form of recreational activity. A people who greatly valued their freedom, some of their most revered heroes from history were those who liberated them from oppression, such as Shalash, the legendary Second Liberator, so beloved he was remembered for centuries and eventually had a Federation starship named in his honor. Having achieved interstellar spaceflight at some point before the 20th century, the Tellarites were a diverse people with wide-ranging values, seeing some partake in more violent activities like bounty hunting or slave trading, but for the most part were considered good-natured and their government reasonable, developing cordial relations with the Vulcans, who deemed them relatively trustworthy. Though they were not a particularly friendly species, they often offered some form of assistance to those in need, like when a passing Tellarite ship detected Vulcans stranded on pre-warp Earth in the 20th century, and so contacted their government, which led to their rescue. Similarly, when Tellarites passed near the damaged Earth ship Enterprise NX-01 in the 22nd century, they gave the coordinates to a nearby automated repair facility. Yet relations were not so amicable with the Andorian people, hailing from the frozen moon Andoria, orbiting a ringed gas giant in the Beta Quadrant. Long-standing enemies, the two powers remained in conflict for over 100 years, and in the early 22nd century, Tellarite defense forces, despite their inferior technology, successfully repelled an invasion from the Andorian Empire, pushing the enemy out of their space. Hostilities continued into the 2150s when they faced conflict over trade disputes. Hoping to avoid the need for violence, both sides agreed to engage in negotiations, with Commander Shran of the Andorian Imperial starship Kumari ordered to escort his people's ambassador to meet with a Tellarite delegation. Yet when the Romulan Star Empire learned of this development, they sought to sabotage any chance of peace and destabilize the entire region. By keeping these independent powers as enemies, the Romulans could more easily expand their empire, ensuring their dominance as they rose to become a regional superpower. Therefore, the Romulans enacted a plan to destroy the Kumari and kill the Andorian ambassador, all the while planting evidence that Tellarites were responsible. Oppositely to the Star Empire, United Earth was on good terms with both aggrieved parties and felt it in their best interest to help establish peace, sending Captain Archer and the Enterprise NX-01 to escort Ambassador Grawl and the Tellarite delegation before helping to mediate an agreement. It was on their way to this meeting that the Enterprise found the wreckage of the Kumari, rescuing Commander Shran and what survivors they could, though it was too late for the ambassador. The Andorians immediately blamed the Tellarites, and the situation only grew worse when they discovered their enemies were also aboard the Enterprise. With each side hostile to the other, violence eventually erupted, resulting in the Tellarite Narg killing the Andorian Talus, Commander Shran's lover and tactical officer. It was only through the intervention of Captain Archer that further escalation was avoided long enough for an investigation to reveal the Romulans as the true culprits behind the attack. Barely averting a more serious crisis, both sides at last engaged in peace talks, successfully resolving their dispute without need for war. Though the Romulans tried to foment division, they in fact created a situation where for the first time ever, Tellar, Andoria, Vulcan, and Earth were all on good terms, while the Star Empire was exposed as their common enemy, motivating these independent powers to start conducting joint military operations and enter more formal discussions of alliance. As a result of this growing friendship, a number of worlds, including Tellar, Andoria, Vulcan, Denobula, Rigel, and Coridan met on Earth in 2155 to discuss forming a coalition of planets. Though hopes were high, many issues needed to be resolved, like when the Tellarites pushed for a trade embargo against the planet Orion, known to have a strong criminal element, claiming they were responsible for disrupting trade through regular freighter attacks. Outraged by the suggestion, Corodan stated these allegations were false, as they were longtime trade partners of Orion, then accusing the Tellarites of baseless slander to deprive them of necessary commerce. Unfortunately for those seeking to resolve such differences, the conference was nearly disrupted by the xenophobic human terrorists of Terra Prime seeking to expel all alien influence from their space. Thanks to the efforts of the Enterprise crew, the terrorists were eventually thwarted and the talks continued, but soon enough, an even greater threat re-emerged to end this alliance before it properly began. And so, the would-be coalition faced their first major test when the Romulan Star Empire invaded United Earth space in 2156, beginning the Earth-Romulan War. Though the Empire expected an easy victory against this minor power, the war dragged on until 2160 as the Tellarites, Andorians, and Vulcans all came to Earth's defense, proving so powerful they ultimately defeated the Romulans in the decisive Battle of Charon to win the war. Having experienced the benefits of working together, this loose coalition finalized an agreement and formed the United Federation of Planets in 2161 to be governed by an elected Federation president and council comprised of representatives from member worlds. Among the famous figures who attended this historic signing, Tellarite representatives may have included the diplomats Grawl and Nothakel. Although Federation headquarters were stationed on Earth due to their pivotal role in forming the Alliance, Tellarites as a founding member were heavily involved in all operations, with many serving as officers and commanders in Starfleet. Despite their tempers and love of arguments, many Tellarites also served as politicians and diplomats, with their representatives contributing to many meaningful negotiations throughout the years, like in 2268, when the planet Corodan sought membership to the Federation. Seeing old disputes resurface, the Tellarites objected to Corodan's entry due to their relationship with the Orion criminal syndicate known to raid trade ships. Attending the Babel Conference to work out these differences, things nearly fell apart when an agent of the Orion Syndicate assassinated the Tellarite ambassador Gav while attempting to frame Ambassador Sarek of Vulcan. Yet the scheme ultimately failed, allowing Sarek to successfully negotiate an agreement with the Tellarites while bringing Corodan into the Federation. Continuing this diplomatic tradition, the Tellarites also took part in a conference to help draft the Khitomer Accords of 2293, establishing peace between the Federation and Klingon Empire. Growing their influence steadily across the Alpha and Beta quadrants, many worlds applied to join the Federation, seeing value in a constitution based on the enlightened principles of equality, liberty, and peaceful coexistence. Thus, by the 24th century, the protections and freedoms offered by this powerful alliance extended to over 150 member worlds. Rising from a small, independent power to one of the most influential species of the Federation, the years of Tellarite peace and prosperity nearly ended in disaster when the mighty Dominion of the Gamma Quadrant invaded the Alpha and Beta quadrants in 2373. Launching a large-scale, devastating campaign, the Dominion ventured deep into enemy space, capturing Betaset and raiding Earth, which meant other founder worlds like Tellar, Andoria, Vulcan, and others were also vulnerable to attack. But in the end, an alliance between the Federation, Klingons, and Romulans ultimately succeeded in defeating and pushing back the Dominion to re-establish peace. According to a possible alternative timeline, Tellarites were known to send their people on long-range, deep space missions, putting them in cryosleep to survive the journey, like when they sent a small colony of miners to the Delta Quadrant. In this timeline, most Tellarites remained part of the Federation into the 32nd century, while others joined the Tellarite Exchange, a mercantile enterprise within the Emerald Chain Syndicate. A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like Tamika the Black Wolf, Faith the Wandering Huntress, Tom Moonstruck Waters, and Sir Joe Wartfoot of the North. If you'd like to help the channel, be sure to give a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and click on the links below, or else go to patreon.com/CivilizationEx, where you can gain early access to videos, vote on future content, and watch the Patreon-only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.